Hey, this is Andrew Stewart-Jones. I play Christopher Allen on Gotham, and you are listening to Gotham TV Podcast.
This is Victoria Cartagena. I play Renee Montoya on Gotham, and you're listening to Gotham TV Podcast.
How would Alfred deal with these two visitors to Gotham from Ireland?
Well, I mean, first of all, how did you get to the door? And secondly, I'd grasp you firmly by the elbow and I'd walk you very smartly to the gates, and I might even show you my commando knife. How's that?
You could set the dogs on us as well.
Yeah, well, no, I don't need dogs, mate.
Welcome back to Gotham TV Podcast. This is episode 47 of our podcast, covering the finale of Gotham, episode 22. All happy families are alike. Welcome back. I'm Derek. I'm one of your hosts.
Hi, I'm John, one of your other hosts. Welcome, Gothamites, back. Welcome, detectives. The final episode of our podcast looking at the season finale of Gotham, episode 22.
Yeah, can't believe how big this episode was.
Huge. It was like a mini careering out of control around a twisty mountaintop, jam-packed with people and luggage, about to career off the side of the road, but was just kept back on track by an expert driver, probably in the form of Danny Cannon, who directed it, and of course Bruno Heller, the showrunner, who scripted the episode. You know, this was a absolute monster of an episode with intrigue for season 2, wrap-ups for season 1, revelations for recent episodes. So, you know, amazing. Really good.
Yeah, absolutely huge. And the other big news, obviously, is this is, being that it is the finale, this is our finale of Gotham TV Podcast. This is the final episode covering Gotham. For this season, we've had 12 weeks in a row we've been covering Gotham. And obviously the previous 10 episodes last year as well. So, been doing a lot back to back, the last couple months.
Yeah. But, I mean, it's kind of sad that, you know, we're coming to the end of season 1, but I must say, I'm also looking forward to season 2. There's already been some news out on season 2, but that will come around in a heartbeat. I mean, we're looking to probably take maybe 3 to 4 weeks off and come back after a break just to maybe do a roundup and also talk some more comics relating to Gotham and Batman and the DC universe. So definitely keep listening to us, and certainly to our American friends as well. You know, we've been slightly out of sync with the schedule in the US, but thank you so much for listening, and keep listening, keep finding us. Remember, you can find us on www.gothamtvpodcast.com/iTunes, or you can search Gotham TV Podcast in any good podcast catchers such as Stitcher, Player FM, and whack in those headphones. Pump up the volume and listen to our dulcet tones waxing lyrically about Gotham.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you have any thoughts on Gotham season 1, any thoughts for what you think is going to happen in season 2, and if you have any recommendations of comic books we should be covering in our off season, just make sure you send us an email into feedback@gothamtvpodcast.com. It's the best way to contact us.
Remember, we will still be on Twitter as well. So there is also our Twitter handle at Gotham TV Podcast. And of course, always, if you can, like or +1 our Facebook and Google pages, respectively. Just search Gotham TV Podcast.
Absolutely, and we will be coming back at the end of our review for this episode with our competition and our prize winner for this season of our prize of the Christopher Minga print of Oswald Cobblepot, plus the Gotham by Midnight comics, the first 5, with art by Ben Templesmith, which are fantastic and really good read.
And of course, a few other little goodies that we've been keeping quiet.
And without further ado, I think it's on to our review. As John mentioned, this episode, All Happy Families Are Alike, was written by Bruno Heller and directed by Danny Cannon. John, do you want to give us your synopsis for the final episode of Gotham of Season 1?
Sure. All hell breaks loose as Gotham descends into all-out chaos and warfare between the rival mafia factions, as a daring attack on Falcone takes place down at the docks by Maroni. At the same time, another faction, led by Fish Mooney, arrives in Gotham to seize her opportunity for power and revenge, and to truly put the cat among the pigeons. As the fighting intensifies, Barbara, counselled by Leslie Tompkins, must battle her demons as she comes to terms with her ordeal under the ogre. And Enigma also struggles with his inner voice and dual personality as the Riddle Man begins to consume Ed. Is this truly the beginning of the Riddler? Meanwhile, the ebb and flow of mob warfare brings about revelations and changing loyalties. Oswald reveals his hand to Falcone. Fish puts a proposal to Maroni. Jim must return one of those big favours, and Butch battles with his allegiances. How and where will the hammer fall? All the while, Bruce and Alfred learn the truth about Stoicism, the reason for Thomas Wayne's love of classical music, and the beginnings of his long-held secret, held within the study and fireplace at Wayne Manor. Nothing will ever be the same for Bruce and Alfred again.
Yes, as we said, so much going on in this episode. I think I keep saying that. It's,
I think my tongue was really starting to get twisted in the synopsis. I was like, there's so much going on in this episode. But actually, when it came out of the mincer at the end, I absolutely loved it. I mean, it bordered on maybe just too much happening at some points, and maybe some aspects of it didn't feel natural or didn't feel as though they flowed. But I think the quality of the characters, a good quality of the writing and the direction, really just about managed to hold the final episode together. And of course, I also think there were some absolute standout moments peppered all along the way within this episode. One of them being Enigma's transformation into the Riddler. And that, of course, leads me on to my first case point.
Good link for yourself there, John.
Yeah, I did, yeah. Did you know anything about it?
No.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say the birth of the Riddler was just so cool. I thought the entire scene, the fact that Christine Kringle was there, she spotted the clue.
Yes.
But, you know, he's plausible deniability at this moment from Enigma. You know, that is just presumably coincidence. You know, he casts it aside, but you can. It's his first murder, his first riddle. You know, he casts that aside, but I loved that interaction that she was there prior to then. What happens were, you know, these voices in his head begin to take over, or I should say this other voice begins to take over in his head, and then this other personality begins to assert itself. And I just loved how this whole scene played out in terms of dialogue, with Christine Kringle there as well, and also how it was shot, filmed, the editing, everything, the music, those harsh strings and the piano that kind of crescendoed throughout this scene. I really, really liked the whole schizophrenic element being really coming into play now with Enigma, where you hear that slightly tonally different voice coming from the Riddler, but also then just that jerky switch and movement of his body, that kind of out-of-body experience feel that was given here. That, to me, was just fantastic. How it was realised was superb, you know, really good.
Yeah.
For me, this descent into that personality was great and really fitting for this character, considering his arc over this first season.
Yeah, without a doubt, and so well filmed, so well put together. It felt like something out of Nine Inch Nails' video Closer. Just the way it was edited together, where essentially Corey Michael Smith must have done about 15 different takes of the different sides of the personality. Essentially, you could tell the difference between the two because of the hairstyle. Really, you could tell one had a really messed up hairstyle and one didn't. The other thing that I loved about it was it wasn't just the Riddler voice, we'll call it, versus Edward Nygma's voice. There were also callbacks to things that other people had said to him over the course of the series.
That
true. Started to build up to this, I suppose, this anxious moment that is twisting him and turning him into the Riddler. And yeah, this is going to be a great reveal for season 2. They've already spoken slightly about the fact that we'll see more of a rise of the Riddler in season 2, and I can definitely see it now. How is Ed going to keep that personality at bay next season?
Yeah, definitely. Just a great standout scene in the show, in this episode, and just quality TV, full stop. It really is a great sequence and scene leading to this kind of schizophrenic alter ego that is bursting out of Ed Nygma. It was great. Yeah. Loved it.
Without a doubt, and obviously that definitely is one of my points. There's no way I could say that scene wouldn't be a point for me. It's probably one of my favorite moments on TV this season because I didn't expect to see it, particularly in this episode. I thought he'd laid enough clues that it would be something you might see in the first episode of next season, perhaps. The fact that we knew there was a clue hidden in the letter that Dorothy had apparently sent to Christine Kringle, we knew it was there. She found it very quickly. She's an intelligent woman, which I loved, obviously. But the fact that it came in at the end of this episode, I was quite surprised with, and it was a really shocking moment and really good to have that reaction from Ed as well. It was great. Yeah, excellent.
Big time. Derek, what's your first case point then?
My first case point is really about the title of the episode and about the structure, I suppose, of some of these elements. We're 22 episodes into a show, so you have got a number of families within this group. The title of the episode is All Happy Families Are Alike, and I just kind of was looking at some of the families that were in there. We don't normally hear much about Bruce's dad. We don't normally hear much about Jim's dad. In this episode, we get elements of both of them. And really, the happy family that was there is gone for both of them. It's Jim on his own and Bruce on his own with the help of Alfred. In this episode, we have Bruce finding out that his father has a secret, so he's starting not to trust his father and not to trust his memory of his father. He seems very angry that his father could have held this secret for so long, against Bruce, but previously they had a very happy family. Then you have Jim, who, for all intents and purposes, what we've heard in the past is that Jim really respected his father, thought of his father as a very honest person, a very honest man. And what he's told in this episode is that Falcone and his father were great friends, so much so that Falcone was given a present, I'll bet a bit of a weird one, by Jim's father, but that they had a long-term friendship for many, many years, and that Falcone respected him. That's quite an interesting revelation for Jim, really. Then you have, some other the weirder families, I suppose. You have Butch and Fish, who are a family. The fact that Fish forgives Butch for shooting her later on shows that they are still a connected family and of a sort. And then, of course, for an episode like this, you have all the crime families. You've got Falcone, Maroney, Fish, and Oswald. And what is it that connects the lot of them? They all want to be the king or queen of Gotham. So they are, again, maybe not so happy families. And definitely the four of them aren't one happy family, but the four crime families definitely have something alike about them. They all want to control the city of Gotham. So I thought a good title for an interesting episode.
They want to lead the big family.
Absolutely. Or be the one family, or the second family, whichever one they eventually settled on between Fish and Maroney. We'll talk about that later on, I'm sure.
I must say I loved the Fish and Butch element of what you were saying there. The fact that they were reunited, that family element to it. She's so protective of him. She's really distraught at their treatment of him or what she can see. She calls out that Oswald will pay for this, for what he has done to him.
Yeah.
You can see later on Butch battle with that manipulation and control that's been done to him first by Victor Zsasz, and then obviously it would appear by Oswald. You know, I think Oswald says, remember your teachings and remember what I've told you and taught you. You see him battling the different allegiances, one forced upon him and one that he went with naturally. Remember, he kills a rival to Fish earlier in the season.
That's right.
So he has huge respect. And I love that. I love the return of these two friends back together again. And I just love that whole reuniting of these two great characters.
Yeah.
It was really, really good to see. And I think, to pick up on one of your other points, I really liked Jim's chat with Falcone, and I love those revelations about his father. And I think this kind of moves me into my second case point, actually.
Right, yeah. Segues are great.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think John Doman as Falcone has been absolutely fantastic. And I loved the scene between Falcone and Jim Gordon on Barbara's balcony. I thought it was a really nice scene between the two. It echoes the scene down in the basement of episode 1, where they have that chat about his father being the district attorney and his relationship with Falcone.
Yeah, where Falcone saves Jim and Harvey, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly, from being killed by Butch.
Yep.
And he brings all this up again through the present that Jim's father had given Falcone, which is this little knife. And it's this scene here.
That was your father's. He gave it to me a long time ago. The spur of the moment birthday gift. I said no. Such a beautiful knife, and I have men with guns to protect me. He said, take it. A knife is a good friend when you have no other.
You were that close.
At one time. Point of the story, Jim. Your father was the most honest man I ever met. But he carried a knife.
I just think it's really, really nice mirroring of, as I said, episode 1. I love how John Doman and Ben McKenzie just play this scene. It highlights more information about Jim's father, which I'm really interested in, actually. That's something I was never expecting to get out of season 1 of Gotham, was to know more about Jim's father.
Mm-hmm.
I think John Doman just absolutely nails the scene again, and it's just pure quality. It's a really great little scene, and as I say, a nice nod to episode 1. I think whilst we're on the subject of Falcone, I loved the return of his hens and chickens. I thought that was really, really good.
That was fantastic. Lots of possibly roasted chickens now with the
after the bazooka attack, exactly, on his warehouse. I just thought that was a nice little touch. And again, I think it's the quality of the actors in this whole season and in this episode. This episode was full of action. It was full of dialogue. It was full of exposition. And there were a lot of people in this episode. And I mean, one of my slight notes where I think maybe it's a slight negative, but in a sense it was rescued by John Doman, because of his stature and just how he delivered the line, was I did think it was odd. It seemed odd that Falcone turned from saying that he was the one to save the city, to help after Jim had rescued him from the hospital, to then suddenly wanting to move out of town and, in a sense, seek the quiet life. I didn't really get that sudden reversal of his view and of his opinion. I know we've seen him want to settle down in other episodes previously from earlier on in the season, but in this moment, considering what he had said earlier on in the episode, I think just at the hospital, he goes like, I need 2 days at my safe house. I'll skin those rabbits. I mean, he seemed resolute and determined for revenge. He's clear that if he dies now, everything falls apart. And then all of a sudden he's wanting to move away, and that just seemed a slight odd note to me. But it just about worked, or I could just about live with it, because I thought John Doman did it really well. It still seemed believable. He certainly looked like he was working on that dialogue, though, to make it as believable, given his previous lines.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how it works. You know, sometimes you pack an episode so full that it does require a lot of hard work from the actual cast of actors and actresses to really to sell it. Certainly when you're careering down to a season finale where there's expectation and so on from the audience. But I thought John Doman was outstanding. That scene with Jim Gordon, excellent. There's a little nod back to the hens. And maybe that was a nod back to Liza and this idea of getting out of the business, you know. But great scene.
Yeah, I think obviously the revelation that Falcone has come to during this episode and during the scenes that are going on around him is that Gotham's already gone crazy. He's already lost complete control of this city, you know. You've got Selena Kyle, who's a young girl, 16, and now got her brand new hairdo and her shotgun.
Crazy.
Yeah, you've got Fish Mooney returning now, which he didn't expect at all.
Crazy.
He just thought it was himself versus Maroni. You know, that's what he thought. And he thought he would just take out Maroni's gang.
Yeah, he's been upstaged by Oswald.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oswald with a machine gun.
Yeah.
Crazy. I love that. It was like, how do you shoot this thing? Bang, 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 bang.
It was a fantastic moment, wasn't it?
Oh, it was brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, I was expecting him to stumble all over the place. He was just spraying bullets across the warehouse. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, really good. But I think that's the realization that Falcone's had, and you're right, it is totally sold by John Doman. That scene itself is kind of a bit poorly put together, I thought, which is why it probably doesn't sit very well in the episode. They get away for a couple of minutes, they hide behind a car, then they climb into the back of a truck and get brought back in by Selena Kyle. It's 2 minutes away just to say those lines of dialogue, really. It feels like a kind of an insert that was done to make sense of why Falcone isn't there at the end of the episode, more than anything else, which is unfortunate. The season hasn't depended on that kind of stuff very much. So you're right. Luckily, you have John Doman playing the part. So yeah, but good point. Good point.
So what's your next case point?
My next case point really is about Jim and Loeb. Love that they keep bringing back in Loeb. The discussion between the two of them in the hospital, I think is really good. Essentially, it's Jim once again challenging Loeb. He's telling him that he's not going to stand aside just because Loeb wants him to. He's a member of the GCPD, but he's not under the control of Loeb. And here's the scene.
Morning, fellas. What can I help you with?
Yes, Gordon. As usual, wrong place, wrong time. Go. Now.
Why? So these men can kill Carmine Falcone?
I have no knowledge of that. Go. That's an order.
You're a disgrace, Loeb. I hope to see you behind bars very soon. Or dead. Whichever.
Hope. It's for losers, Jim. He's all yours.
It's just the hope is for losers is the response from Loeb to Jim when he's saying to him, you know, I hope that you'll be behind bars or dead. Jim is really starting to go to a little bit of his grey side, a little bit of his dark grey side, we'll say. Definitely not turning fully bad, I suppose, but he's wishing people dead. At this stage. And the first on his list is Loeb after everything he's done to him. He's the one that sent him to Arkham, as we mentioned in last week's podcast. You know, he's done everything to him. He's the one that set the ogre on him. You know, this is definitely the battle between these two characters for Jim to obviously eventually become commissioner of Gotham City Police Department. He will take over from Loeb in the future. We all know that, but obviously this battle is going to go on for a while between him and Loeb.
Yeah, and it just sets it up so nicely for season 2. I mean, you're right. Jim has been abused by this man who is essentially his boss. And now it's set up so sweetly for season 2, this power battle or, even more of a power battle now at the top of the GCPD between Loeb and Jim, and who will win.
Yeah.
It must ultimately be Jim, but these are the early days.
Mm-hmm.
So how long does it go on for? Who comes in between? Does maybe Jim win but doesn't get the commissionership? So it's really intriguing to see what will happen in season 2. And I think this is one of the points that is really teed up for season 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just one other point that I really wanted to make about Loeb's conversation there is just the fact that when Jim calls out to him that you want me to stand aside so these men can murder Falcone, he says, I don't know anything about that. Still playing the politician while leading Maroni's gang in to kill Falcone. He still will not admit that he knows what they're going to do, even though he does. He knows exactly what they're going to do, obviously, but he still won't say it out loud in case something's being recorded, probably, in case something will come back and bite him. I just like that little touch.
Yeah, it was so in character for what Commissioner Loeb would do. And I think whilst we're in the hospital, that segues quite nicely onto my next case point.
Good at these. Yeah.
I really enjoyed all aspects, including the Commissioner Loeb, Jim Gordon face-off in the hospital. I thought the hospital scene was superb. I thought it made sense to me that, he's taken out Falcone and he's put into hospital and the hospital clears and City Hall has switched sides, we've been told. All of this going on. And I loved Oswald and Falcone. We saw them come together in the Penguin's umbrella and see that they had this relationship. And here we see Falcone initially pleased at his arrival, thinking he's about to be saved. And then we get the confirmation from Oswald that this is his game and has been his game all the time. And I think he actually calls it out in this little piece we have here.
Good morning, good morning.
Oh, Penguin, thank God. Get me out of here. Maroni's men will be here any minute.
Yes, I imagine so. Mustn't stay long. But I knew I regret it if I didn't say goodbye to you in person. It was me, old friend. I did this to you. I started the war. From the day I met you, I was planning your end. I'm sorry it has to be in this squalid little corner, but c'est la vie.
Why?
Nothing personal, I assure you, sir. You have been a wise mentor and a good friend. But business must come first.
So for me, this is just really Oswald coming clean to Falcone, as he's picking up the knife. This idea that he's been playing around with them ever since they first met, which was down in the basement when they make their deal. Mm-hmm. The chaos, the rivers of blood speech that he says to Jim on the docks as Jim is pushing him towards the edge to shoot him, or so Harvey thinks. Is this him teeing it up as well? We talked in the Arkham episode, I think, about Oswald manipulating Jim all the way through the course of that investigation, where it just looked so apparent. And I think here we get confirmation then that he is the master manipulator. Oswald Cobblepot is a force to be reckoned with, and he's sly, he's underhand, but he's brilliant. And I think, again, in the hospital, we get the first of the favours that he's calling in on Jim.
Yeah.
Where he says, you owe me, Jim, you owe me a favour. I'm in your custody. And it's a great thing here between Oswald and Falcone and Oswald and Jim. All these little nuances that occur. And then, of course, you have the big blowout, the big shootout in the hospital. For me, all I could think of was Simon Pegg's Hot Fuzz, where it's like flying through the air whilst shooting, slow-mo double gun shooting.
Yeah.
You know, this was pure, I must say, action shootout hedonism. It was a great shootout, proper old school.
It was gloriously mental. It was fantastic. I loved how awesome Jim Gordon was. I think while we were watching it, Gotham on 5, Channel 5, who broadcast the show in the UK, put up a slow motion GIF of Ben McKenzie taking a couple of shots. That scene looks even better in slow-mo. They should have used it in the episode. It's fantastic. Really, really good.
And it was just wild. I mean, some good shots as well from Jim. I actually really like how they've captured Jim Gordon's and Ben McKenzie's fighting style.
Mm-hmm.
I really like it. Every time he does it, it looks brutal. It looks like it causes pain and damage. And I think it's really good. And I mean, he gets a good shot in the head. You know, he spins around using someone as body armor, shoots another person.
Yeah.
And then we have what I think you said as the stormtrooper scene where bullets go everywhere except Jim Gordon.
Yeah. I have no idea how that's happening.
I loved it. It was just simply, you know, glass shattering, lamps flying off desks, the bad guys getting picked off one by one, but Jim is fine and dandy. He's sitting pretty. I loved it. I thought it was proper old school, really good fun. Final shootout scene. Absolutely,
yeah. And I don't know how Maroney got to this place in life with having men that shoot that badly. My gosh. Terrible. Actually, just one little point that occurred to me about Oswald when you were speaking there about his moment in the hospital goes again to prove that he is a supervillain of Gotham, really. He tells his plan to Falcone before killing him, tells him that he was responsible for everything that's gone on, and that he's about to kill him. He set up the war in the city. Falcone gets away. Once again, just like any good supervillain, he's told the one person that shouldn't know that information his entire bad plan, his entire plan of taking over the city, and then released him and got away. So it just goes to prove he's a proper supervillain, which I thought was quite interesting.
And yet he did go after Fish in the warehouse.
Yeah.
You know, he was really intent on going after Fish. Yeah, no, that's interesting, definitely.
I thought that was quite fun. But also talked about Maroney. My next point is really about the Maroney scene. Wow. I know I said that Enigma's scene is one of the greatest scenes in television this year. I think this season was one of the really most shocking moments, I thought, this season. The Maroney scene would have stood out in any other show if it hadn't been for the Enigma scene, really. David Zayas is really playing the part of Sal Maroney in these scenes so well. The antagonization of Fish Mooney is a fantastic scene where he keeps driving at her, and you know he's this kind of guy. He's a sleazy criminal who thinks he's won. He thinks he's got all of his pieces on the chessboard in the right places. He's not smart enough for that. We've known that all the way along throughout this season. But to antagonize Fish Mooney, who's also gone through the hell that we've seen in the previous 3 episodes she was in, to antagonize her that much was just the wrong step for Maroney. But it was still a hugely shocking scene for David Zayas to get a bullet through the eyes, essentially. He is a well-known character in the comic books, but hasn't had a huge amount of appearances. He's only really been in the big story that set up Two-Face, which was Long Halloween. But for the character to go out like this, when I thought for the entire episode Falcone was going to go, definitely, I thought they were going to maybe push Maroney to the side, but I didn't expect it to be in one bullet shot to the head. I expected that to be some kind of battle. But yeah, just goes to prove Maroney was way overconfident, and he definitely shouldn't have been pushing the buttons of Fish Mooney.
Yeah, I mean, total R.I.P. Maroney there. And I thought it was a bit of a shocker as well because, you know, I think in the Nolan films, he may have died as well because Two-Face shoots his driver.
And that's right.
Yeah. And now he survives Two-Face's coin toss on his life, but he then shoots the driver and the car flips. Yeah. But Two-Face gets out of that alive because he's in there as well, but he's belted up.
That's right.
But you could possibly assume that Salvador Maroney has died in that car accident.
Yeah, I always forget that he was played by Eric Roberts in the Batman films. It's been a while since we watched those now, since we did our coverage of them during our last off season. Yeah, but David Zayas is really got the part for me now. He really does feel like the Sal Maroni I know far better than anybody else.
Absolutely. I think, and then obviously in The Long Halloween, a huge element to that seminal graphic novel and comic series there by Tim Sale and Jeff Loeb. So I thought it was a bit of a shock that he was shot like that. But I don't think there's any need to be precious that he was shot as a character and that he's died. Yeah. I think the main thing here is whether it works within the timeline. If you think that he is the one that causes Two-Face, but then, and his disfigurement, well then obviously there is a timeline issue here, and that might be the biggest aspect that may cause lots of discussions from here on out. Yeah. But I think for me, it's actually losing David Zayas. I think you're right. He totally nailed the slime ball of Maroni. I mean, that interchange of words between him and Fish Mooney.
Don't call her babes.
Was superb.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Don't call her babes.
And I also like a little callback to what I mentioned, the Stormtrooper scene. In that there is a little callback, I think, from the writer of the show. The fact that Maroni's men couldn't hit Jim Gordon kind of comes into play. Fish is the one that wins that fight, killing all of Maroni's men. So obviously they couldn't hit the side of a barn, while her men are quite well trained with a gun. So I think that's how they took them all out.
No, definitely. And I think with that, it's kind of one of my points as well. So I think it segues in again quite nicely, because I've got deaths and returns. There's lots of deaths here, or near-death experiences, or possible deaths. But there is very much one big resurrection, one big return. And that is Fish Mooney looking like the boatman coming out of Hades right at the start. You know, the last time we'd seen her, she'd been shot in the stomach while she was piloting the helicopter. We see now she has survived that. So this is a huge return from a near-death experience. At the hands of Dulmacher's goons. But she returns, so that's huge, because we haven't seen her for a couple, if not 3 episodes here. Yeah. This was a big, sudden return. I was anticipating that she was going to maybe show up in season 2 until we heard that she wasn't. Yeah. But is she? Maybe. We don't know, because with that return, there was a possible death of Fish Mooney.
That's right.
Fish love water. All that's happened to her is she's gone into the drink.
That's right.
Because Butch shot Oswald and then Fish right in the legs, and then Oswald pushes her over.
Yeah.
If she can survive a gunshot to the stomach, I reckon she can survive a gunshot to the leg. And a topple. I know it was a long way now. Definitely was a long way, but can survive a fall into the water.
Yeah, as you mentioned, if anybody can survive falling from that height into the water, it's going to be Fish.
So that again provides to me a lot of intrigue. I know we've heard that she's not coming back, but I think there's always the possibility.
Absolutely.
And this was a possible death of Fish, not a confirmed hit.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is the point being made that Jada Pinkett Smith has said she's not returning for season 2. That did not necessarily mean that if there is a season 3, 4, 5, that doesn't mean that she won't don the big blue eye and return to Gotham in season 3 Revelation, or maybe even season 2 finale.
So that was one of them. Obviously Maroni, that we've talked about. Critical killing there and death in Maroni, as we've mentioned already. And then obviously there was the near death of Falcone. He was literally a blade's width away from being sliced open by Oswald's favourite implement, the knife. And to me, that was a huge let-off for Falcone. But again, intrigue. Will he now retire? Does this mean we won't see John Doman in season 2 because he's retiring out of Gotham? Or will he still be involved in season 2? So there's a lot of things here with deaths, near deaths, possible deaths. What will happen? Who will replace these people from season 1? Or will they return? Because certainly with David Zayas, with John Doman, and I think with Jada Pinkett Smith, they're three huge actors who are potentially leaving Gotham here in this finale. I kind of hope they don't all go. Obviously, Maroney seems pretty certain.
Yeah, I think so.
But again, it just adds a lot of intrigue to season 2, and it does provide some real drama for this episode. You know, Falcone, will he, won't he? Maroney, definitely will.
Yeah.
Fish, is she, isn't she?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Loved it. Loved all these deaths and returns in this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. So my next point is about Barbara and Leslie, the other big scene in the episode, where we're kind of cutting back from the action to Leslie and Barbara in Barbara's apartment. I've mentioned it quite a few times over the last couple of episodes and over the last kind of arc for Barbara about the fact that they are showing that she's gone to the lowest level. I really like how Bruno Heller writes this character. He obviously has given this as guidance to the other writers that came on board, that this is what he wants to see happen with her, to show that, you know, that she hasn't had the most privileged of life. Just because she has the money in that fantastic apartment doesn't mean she's had the easiest of lives. She explains that it is the ogre that's convinced her to kill her own parents. She explains that the reason for that is essentially that they treated her so badly when she was a kid. She's explaining that she's lost everything. I think it's a really good scene to begin with. That basic concept works really, really well. Where it kind of goes a bit off the rails for me is the fight with Leslie. I'm not too sure whether we've heard enough from Barbara that would tell me that she's gone so far over the edge that she's going to kill her potential love rival with Jim Gordon, who she agrees she's lost. There are some fantastically hilarious moments of it, but I'm not sure they were meant to be hilarious, because I think Aaron Richards is playing this part very seriously. And I don't think some of the scenes that are in that are meant to be as funny as they are.
Here's Barbara. Sent me straight out of The Shining.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a reference. I definitely think he's referencing The Shining without a doubt.
Absolutely. But I actually loved that.
Uh-huh.
I loved the referencing of The Shining. To me, it was absolutely classic. I think I agree. To me, it's just she's gone off the rails. I was there. I loved how Aaron Richards played Barbara Keane here. I thought it was vulnerable. It was devastated.
Mm-hmm.
It was just fantastic. As you say, what she's been through in the last, the previous 3 episodes is huge for anybody to take on board. And I like that we're seeing the consequences of that. And I think the way Aaron Richards portrays that is absolutely fantastic. At the same time, I love the interaction between Aaron Richards and Marina Baccara,
Mm-hmm.
Leslie Tompkins and Barbara Keane. I love these interactions. I think it's handled really well. But then I'm taken out of it by thinking, would this even be allowed? Trauma counselling to Barbara
Mm-hmm.
by the girlfriend of her ex. Is that suitable for trauma counselling? Probably not. But, you know, I can forgive it because it's heightened environment.
Yeah.
And I suppose ultimately leading towards maybe this breakdown.
Yeah.
But
I do like the little dig that Leslie gets into Barbara quite early on when Jim comes in to visit the two of them, and Leslie goes, "You need trauma counselling, like now," which is a nice little dig from Leslie to her love rival, I suppose.
And in fairness to Leslie Tompkins, she is not looking to counsel Barbara.
Mm-hmm.
It's Barbara who's been persistent and persuasive in this matter. But I liked the fight between them. I thought it was good. I thought, to me, it was more about, not that she was dispensing of her love rival, it was just that she's got the killer in her. The ogre has still manipulated her enough. I mean, we've seen that obviously Butch Gill's Ian, but I think it had a bit of the dark humour of the "Here's Barbara." Yeah. But
I'll give
the
you that.
head bashing.
I'll give you that. I think. Yeah.
Let me finish, because what I did think. Let me just finish what I was saying, because what I did find absolutely hilarious was Leslie Tompkins battering Barbara's head against the wooden floor as the door swings open to reveal Jim looking at, essentially, I can only think that's going through his mind is, why is my girlfriend trying to, like, kill my ex-girlfriend? As though that wouldn't be obvious by the fact that his ex is being counselled by his current girlfriend. But then Leslie runs up to him saying, she tried to attack me, but as a police officer, you're walking in and seeing someone else attack someone, the other person.
It's awful. It's awful. This is exactly what my point was. I loved the writing of the scene. I thought it was fantastic. Once it gets into the fight, there are some funny moments, but the escalation to Leslie who must have bashed Barbara's head on the ground about 10 times. Poor Barbara. I think she might have a little cave in the back of her head there.
I thought so too.
But it does all end with another fantastic Bullockism, another fantastic moment from Harvey Bullock, where he says, I told you that girl was trouble about Barbara, which I think is brilliant. A great little cap on the scene, but it was escalating humour at a point when you probably didn't need it. This is a pretty, as you said, a hugely traumatic situation for Barbara. And, you know, Barbara doesn't get a huge amount of love from a lot of characters in Gotham. And this could have been the moment to reveal that there's a lot of pain built up in her, and perhaps have her get some help for this. But unfortunately, that wasn't the decision they went with. They went for bashing her head off the ground.
It was a bit off kilter, but hilarious towards the end. Unintentionally, maybe, I don't know. But I was chuckling away, I have to say.
And this was the scene she was recording when she was doing her Live Below the Line challenge, John. Remember, we heard about that when we were watching the interview with her a couple of months ago.
Yeah, definitely. But I think one thing is, you know, tea and cake and knives are, something to steer clear of in Barbara's apartment.
Yeah, and when you're doing counselling with somebody, definitely. So, John, what is your final point?
It has to be.
We kept this one aside, didn't we?
The secret entrance in the study, in the library of Wayne Manor, Thomas Wayne's former nest and refuge, is clinically taken apart by the young Bruce Wayne. And it was just brilliant. It was really unexpected. I was wondering how the whole scene between Alfred and Bruce was going to play out. It seemed to me just to not necessarily be going anywhere. And then you got the reveal, and it was fantastic. Firstly, Batcave material. Secondly, secret entrance. Thirdly, Bruce and Alfred. For me, one part of this season that is absolutely fabulous, absolutely fantastic. Great interchange, great interplay, great dialogue. There's a real good chemistry, I think, between these two on screen. And, you think you hear bats flapping their wings down the stairs. You know, what's down there? Is it a wine cellar, maybe? Is it the start of a bat cave? I mean, the thing I wrote in my notes was, is Batman going to be turned generational? That in the same way that the Court of Owls continually adds to its ranks from the families that are the Court of Owls.
In the comic books,
In the comic books. Will a vigilante, maybe not Batman, maybe that is the symbol that Bruce specifically picks up, but maybe down those stairs is something that suggests that Thomas Wayne was equally as much a vigilante, trying to protect other people, maybe in a different way. You know, in Batman Begins, he is philanthropic. And what we know here is that he has to hide that from his own company. As Lucius Fox has said, he is stoic. And what we find out here is that's a philosophy, that he has to hide his true self. That's Batman.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's a really interesting, really intriguing ending for this show. And it was fantastic. I loved it. I mean, I thought they were going to maybe have Bruce Wayne fall into a cave or a sinkhole in the episode where he's going out to see the sunrise early in the morning that he used to do with Thomas, and he ends up doing it with Alfred. And I thought the moment where he falls, he's going to seek refuge in a cave or something like that, and we'll get a little nod to maybe the origins of the Batcave. And here we just have a secret entrance. I mean, maybe we're reading way too much into it.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just additional storage space. But
I finally found that place where Dad used to take all my toys and put them when he was angry with me.
It.
Yeah.
It was superb. I mean, fair plays. This is a big talking point. I can't wait to see what happens in season 2 for them to explain this. There's got to be something good.
I know they're really going to have to work hard here, aren't they? I'm very intrigued by it. I think it's a fantastic scene. I love that they find it. I love that they play the fantastic classical piece just to kind of tie in with the fact that that's what Bruce used to hear when he was a kid. I'm not so sure about the Batcave. I think people are getting their hopes up way too much. Bruce finding the Batcave when he's 12 and he's still got another 6 years to go before he becomes the Batman. I think you're right, John. I think the idea that this is another secret room that contains something that belongs, some secret that belongs to Thomas that he doesn't want the rest of the world to know, I think that's more likely than it being a fully kitted out Batcave with, 2 sizes of Batsuit, one for his son and one for himself that he, But I'm really hopeful that the Gotham TV writers do pay off the big find in Wayne Manor, though.
Yeah, I mean, just to be clear, I'm calling it the Batcave because it's a secret entrance coming from Thomas Wayne's study in Wayne Manor. I know there's not the Batman.
Yeah, okay.
I'm
not saying just you. This is more to do with the theory of a lot of people. This is the Batcave.
I'm just saying it's the way I'm describing it, in a sense, really. And I did have a flicker for a moment, which I have in my notes, that is Batman intergenerational. We have Batman Year 1, we have Batman Year 0, we have Batman Year 100. Robin is renewed with different people.
Yeah.
The Court of Owls are renewed. Batman is renewed. This idea potentially could be a runner to an extent.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's with Thomas. I think it is with Bruce. But maybe Thomas was doing another form of vigilantism that was more philanthropic, less going after the bad guys, but more trying to help the poor, working class and needy in society. And that's what he has to hide from Wayne Enterprises, the more ethical, moral version of Wayne Enterprises to an extent.
So maybe it's a Robin Hood costume, is what you're saying.
It's an Iron Man suit.
Oh, that would be awesome.
He actually is Tony Stark's dad.
Excellent. John, do you have any notes about this episode?
Yeah, another film reference. Obviously, I've mentioned The Shining with Here's Johnny. And of course, Jack Nicholson played the Joker. But we do have I Am the King of Gotham. He does a very Leonardo DiCaprio. There was no Kate Winslet, but it pushed her off in the form of Fish Mooney.
Legs flying.
The Titanic reference, I mean, to me, it seemed very Titanic. And I kind of could have done without it a bit, maybe. But, again, another film reference.
I liked it.
I didn't mind it, but I think it's because I was thinking of Titanic, not because of it being Gotham. It was more, it's like a Titanic reference. It was more that thing. I loved what Fish said to Harvey Bullock, where she looked at him as he was tied up and says, we're cool. And you see him, that he's been released later on in that scene. He's been taken down from the hooks. I thought that was a real nice touch and between these two characters and sort of maintaining that dynamic where, last time he'd seen her, he was helping her out of Gotham to protect her. So that was really, really nice, I thought. Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Derek, do you have any other little notes on the episode?
Yeah, a couple from me as well. First things first, right at the beginning of the episode, we got our first ever time jump. So all those people that have wanted a time jump in Gotham, you got it. It was 2 weeks, and I'm hoping that's the only time jumps that they do on the show. Again, we talked about it last week from a piece of feedback that we received. I do not want to see a time jump where it's a couple of years and they replace David Mazouz, for example, so they can bring in Batman in this show. I'm happy enough with a couple of weeks or a couple of months.
We've had a time jump back of 10 years.
Well, yeah, we've had flashback, yes, but not a time jump as such. But I did like the
time
idea.
Jump backwards.
All right, Doctor Who, tell me.
But yeah, no, I get what you're saying. There was a little blip in the space-time continuum in Gotham. Absolutely.
And then the other one was just a line that was said in the episode that I just didn't really understand, and it's kind of possibly connected with that 2-week time jump, maybe. But essentially, Jim says to Harvey, "I'm done in this town." He actually says it to a cop in GCPD first, and then he says to Harvey, "I'm done in this town. I've got nothing to live for and everything, nothing to lose, essentially. I'm done in this town. I might as well go out in a blaze of glory, essentially." How did that happen? That's what I want to know. I've watched all 22 episodes of this. I've done a podcast about it and watched pretty intently on what's going on. He's just got himself a new girlfriend. He saved his ex-girlfriend from the ogre, essentially a terrorist who's been taking out GCPD members and their family. And he's going to get back at Commissioner Loeb. Why is he now in a worse place than he was with that 2-week time jump? Did we just not get to see it? Or is it the fact that there is a turf war going on that he can do nothing to stop? But that wouldn't be personally affecting Jim Gordon. So I just didn't really understand the line. I thought it was kind of a bit of a weird concept for Jim to suddenly feel that he's lost everything and he's might as well get out of Gotham because everybody's treating him so poorly. It didn't really make that much sense for me.
Yeah, I mean, it did seem strange because I was thinking he's been made head of the police union as well. To an extent, he's got Loeb's number called, so kind of has a certain amount of power over him there, in the sense that he's no longer afraid of him. Yeah. But we haven't seen Mayor Aubrey at all, so you never know. There could be these other things which could have been going on off screen, and I do think, as you say, it could just be something to do with the time jump, that it's all headed south after those 2 weeks. You know, he's got powerful enemies in Commissioner Loeb and Mayor Aubrey there massing against him. That's a problem and could be for the future. So it's interesting.
It seemed like a weird choice since most of the season has been the story of Jim Gordon in GCPD and kind of showing how he's starting to get some of the GCPD on his side. He's winning his cases. He's has a nice love interest. It's kind of an odd choice to have him going from defeating the ogre at the end of one episode to saying, I might as well leave Gotham. I've lost everything. It seemed like a weird choice. Maybe the line didn't need to be there. And that when they extended the series, maybe perhaps that was it. That it's a line that's just slightly out of context. But with that, I think that's our review of Gotham overall for this season finale, John.
Yeah, loved it. I thought it was a roller coaster. I mean, it really was. I mean, and to the point where sometimes you felt the wheels were coming off and you were going to be flying off that roller coaster, heading very rapidly towards the ground and the hard surface.
Yes, and there was possibly pushed down by Leslie Tompkins.
Yeah, a huge bump. But I think it just about pulled it off. And actually, there's a lot in this episode, I think, that is some really good TV, some really touching moments, a number of reflective moments back, like between Falcone and Jim. There's Enigma's transformation, which is great TV. There is, a shocking revelation at the end with the fireplace moving back, the classical music blaring, and seeing Alfred and Bruce aghast at, what is down there.
Yep.
You hear something fluttering around down there. More likely to be bats, I would suspect. There is a load of different things happening. Fish comes back.
Yeah.
You have Butch Fish reunited. You have Butch Oswald and Fish fighting. I mean, there's huge amounts of stuff going on. And I think it works just about, definitely. And it's a good season finale. It does tee up some interesting questions for season 2 and where they'll go. So yeah, a great episode, I think, to finish off a 22 episode season that at the start was only 13.
Yeah, absolutely. Really intriguing, definitely. A really good episode. Really enjoyed the season finale. And Selena with a shotgun. How can you go wrong?
Exactly. So I think if you have any thoughts or comments specifically on this episode that you want to let us know about, and we can always bring these into a future episode in maybe about 4 weeks, please send in your comments to feedback@GothamTVPodcast.com. You can also leave comments on our Facebook page and on our Google Plus page. Just search Gotham TV Podcast. Follow us on Google, like our page on Facebook, and of course, tweet at us at Gotham TV Podcast.
Yeah. And I think with that, it's on to our feedback and competition result.
Absolutely.
Fascinating. Point well made, I think.
So our first bit of feedback comes from Agent Daniel from the Welcome to Level 7 podcast. Thanks very much, Daniel. It's really good for you to get in contact with us. So he starts with, what does a stomach bug food poisoning bring you? Binge watching Gotham. Where are Montoya and Alan? Seriously, what do they need to do to get some screen time? Yeah, totally agree. Montoya and Alan have been completely lacking for the rest of the second half of the season. We saw one nice scene with Rena Montoya saying goodbye to Renee in episode 11, and we never saw Andrew Stewart Jones again from, I think, episode 10 was his last episode, or even episode 9. So unfortunately, the MCU did not investigate any major crimes in the second half of the season, and a terrible loss for the show, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, thanks, Agent Detective Daniel, for the feedback. I hope you're feeling better after the stomach bug food poisoning. You will hear no qualms from me about that. I completely agree. I actually don't even want to go into it too much because I kind of feel that it's more of a round table topic, possibly. Really missed both of them in the second half of the season. I thought they could really have been just as prominent without too much screen time as they were in the first part of season 1. I mean, even in this last episode, to have them coming in and fighting some of Maroni's goons in the warehouse, or rescuing Jim and Harvey in the hospital or something, there was ample opportunity to involve them.
Absolutely.
So, fingers crossed, legs crossed, head crossed, arms crossed, everything crossed to hope that they are in season 2, but I don't want to go into it too much, I suppose, for me.
Okay, yeah. Daniel goes on to say, bring on more adventures of Bat and Cat, kid detectives. I don't really know after the murder of Reggie whether Bruce really trusts Selena that much anymore. I'm not really too sure. I know they had their little adventure after that. But yeah, really good scenes with those guys as kid detectives, definitely.
Yeah, I definitely think Selena Kyle has maybe grown up beyond maybe Bruce Wayne to an extent. Obviously, killing someone at a young age would have that effect. Mm-hmm. So it'll be interesting, but I like the dynamic between the two, and I still think there's an awful lot to explore there. So yeah, definitely bring on the kid detectives, but it may also be nice to explore how they're diverging as well. Yeah. So it should be really interesting, yeah.
Yeah. So Daniel says, how many cold pots do you two have? Because everyone, and I mean everyone in Gotham, seems to have killed someone. He's absolutely right. Another email we got in from Daniel, I'm going to read the two of them together because they came in quite close together. He says, I desperately do not want Barbara Keene to be the mother of Barbara Gordon. Barbara Gordon should be a source of light in this world, and I can't see a Barbara Keene Jr. as being someone who could give us hope in the grime. Now I can see her, especially now, as the mother of James Jr. Yep, she totally could be his mom. I guess we won't know until the series jumps forward in season 4. So, for the non-comic book readers out there, what Daniel's referring to here is essentially that Barbara Gordon, who becomes Batgirl, is a much more kind of peppy, fun character, especially if you've seen Batman 66. She's a much peppier character. Definitely, if you're going to see potentially those kind of people come out of kind of bad circumstances around them, possibly, but she's not going to learn a huge amount of being a happy, joyful person from the way poor Barbara's been in this season anyway. She's been a very dark character.
Yeah, I still think Barbara can be lightened. I think she can recover, and maybe she has to be the eternal optimist and have a lighter side to her, given the trauma that she's been through. Maybe that bang on the head will have maybe
lightened her mood. Maybe.
Yeah, lightened her mood. She's forgotten everything about the ogre now. She's got amnesia instead, and is a completely different person. So it'll be interesting to see.
What a great bit of therapy then.
Exactly. It'll be interesting to see. How many Cobblepots do I have? I don't have any.
No, me neither. No, I guess we don't live in Gotham, which is a good thing, I suppose.
That is a good thing.
Yeah.
But no Cobblepots. Maybe a fly with a roll of newspaper or something like that.
Well, then you've got a million Cobblepots.
Yeah. But, thanks so much, Daniel, for the feedback, Agent Detective Daniel. It's really good to hear your thoughts on this, as it is to hear everyone's thoughts as well. And I think we have some more feedback.
Yeah, some feedback and a bit of news this week about another member of the Smith clan. Jaden Smith has been cast as Static Shock in the upcoming DC project, so apparently a multi-film deal. Not given official news from DC yet, but definitely confirmed by an actor who was in The Walking Dead, an actor called Tyler James Williams, who apparently is very close with Jaden Smith. I don't know much about the character of Static Shock. Apparently, he's had a bit of a popular run in some of the cartoons that have been on, some of those, but I definitely don't know a huge amount about him from the comic books. He is a young character, apparently modelled off Spider-Man, so quite a similar kind of character to that style for the DC universe. But played by Jaden Smith is probably the most interesting part of the story. You now have Jada Pinkett Smith, obviously as Fish Mooney. You also have Will Smith with his upcoming role in Suicide Squad, and now Jaden, the third member of the Smith clan, is now in the DC universe. So quite interesting. And Dylan Exner said, "Do you think this is true? If so, what DC character should Willow, the other member of the Smith clan, what character should she play? Are the Smiths taking over the DC universe, John?"
It would seem so. Yeah, it'd be interesting. Willow should play... She could play a good Poison Ivy as well.
We already have a Poison Ivy.
No,
but sure,
I know, but
DC Universe is definitely known for having multiple versions of the same character, or multiple actors and actresses playing the same character. So yeah, maybe. Yeah, thanks for that feedback, Dylan. It's very possible that Willow will get a part in one of the DC shows coming up. Maybe that was the whole deal with Jada and the deal with Will, that their kids get parts in DC movies in future. We do know that Jaden Smith does have a penchant for wearing a white Batman outfit to weddings, and apparently his recent outing to a party was him wearing a white Batman suit as well. So he obviously likes his DC comics, so it'll be interesting to see what he does.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, Dylan.
We also got a lot of final episode feedback whilst we were watching Gotham on Channel 5. We got a lot of Twitter, but we also got another bit of feedback from Dylan Exner on Facebook, and he said that without giving too much away, the final shot is the best part. I must say, completely agree with that. Loved the whole reveal of the fireplace and the secret passage. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I'm not too sure actually, Dylan. I think there were 3 different shots in this episode that are fantastic. I do love the reveal of the fireplace, but I want to know what it is next season. For me, definitely the Maroney shot to the head and Enigma's moment of clarity, I suppose, or moment of Riddler, are 2 huge scenes for me in this episode. Next up, we got some Twitter feedback as well. James Story says, "I'm sure you'll have plenty to discuss on your final episode. Love the finale, 110 mile an hour all the way through."
Yeah. Beth Foy said on Twitter, "I feel sorry for Miss Kringles and for her safety in the next season of Gotham."
Yeah, and Burns Crew Talk says, what a finale, that was awesome. And the football season finished the same weekend. My life feels empty now.
Doug Green on Twitter. So boys, was season 1 everything you hoped it would be?
Oh yeah, interesting
question.
Yeah, I think we might save that for our full season 1 wrap up. Definitely some highs and lows, some good, some bad points. It's a long season, 22 episodes, so we'll definitely be gathering our thoughts for a future episode.
Yeah, I think season 1 was very flexible. My views and opinions about it changed quite a lot, but overall, I really liked it.
Yeah.
And what I mean by my opinions changed was that it wasn't that they got better or worse. I meant how I viewed the show and what it was trying to do changed. And I was happy enough to watch that. I think maybe for some people, it wouldn't have fitted them. It wouldn't have been what they wanted. But I saw an evolution of a TV show that didn't know it was going to get 22 episodes, as well as a TV show. I suppose. So, season 1 was interesting, but definitely liked it overall.
Yeah, absolutely. And our final piece of feedback comes in from Dawn Christofferson, who's been tweeting along with us for the last, I think, 12 episodes. We've been pretty much tweeting every single Monday night. And Dawn just says, it's a wrap. Thank you so much for letting us enjoy the show in your good company. And thanks very much for listening, Dawn. Thanks very much for tweeting along with us. And to all the rest of you. So good to hear from you.
Yeah, thank you so much for tweeting along, Facebooking, and listening to the show. It's so good to hear your thoughts, and it's really good having that community. It's such a great thing to have. And thank you so much for us being in good company with everyone else out there. It's great. Thank you.
Absolutely. And with that, I think it's on to our draw for...
yes, live on air. Just like World Cup draw, but maybe not as big budgeted.
John, do you have the hat?
I do. And the names are all loaded into the hat.
Mm-hmm.
There was a good response from when we launched the competition. So we've got about 30 names in the hat. There's people who have contacted us through Facebook, through Twitter, through Google+, and also through feedback at GothamTVPodcast.com, or who have left a review for us on iTunes. Mm-hmm. So they're all in the hat. Loads of people. There are familiar friends who comment and join in all the time. There are a few new people that have also sent in feedback. So I think we should just get to it and pull a name from the hat live on air. So, go on. Shake it up.
I'm gonna...
Drum roll.
And the winner is Ben Rush.
Ben Rush.
Excellent. Congratulations, Ben. We will get in contact with you and get your details and pop you on those prizes.
Yeah, no, congratulations, Ben. Thank you so much for the feedback, and we will send on those prizes. So that's a signed Christopher Eminga print of Oswald Cobblepot. It's the first 5 issues of Gotham After Midnight. It is also a Batman 66 wallet.
Mm-hmm.
It is a Gotham travel pass, and it is a pick up a penguin.
Excellent. I hope you enjoy those, Ben. And thank you so much. And thanks to everybody else for their feedback throughout this season. Really good of you to keep in contact with you, as I said. One of the huge thank you to John for his synopsis for every episode this season. They've been fantastic, and really hard work gone into those as well.
And thank you, Derek, for doing everything else. Which is not true, everyone.
No, it's not true. It's not true at all.
But thank you, everyone, so much. It's been great fun. Loved doing this. Loved doing the draw at the end. I think you guys out there are the reason we do it, as well as our interest for DC properties and for Gotham and Batman in particular. The cast of Gotham as well make it such an interesting TV show to follow. Loving that we've completed our first season of Gotham. And again, thank you so much to Derek for, again, his input into the podcast, for all the points that he makes as well. The 5 points structure that he came up with, really good way of doing the podcast for us, which changed obviously midway through the season. So we're learning, we're developing, just like the cast, creators and crew of Gotham.
Yeah, absolutely. And a very special mention for the cast of Gotham and the people that have come to us and come on board and had interviews with us. We've had Sean Pertwee, we've obviously had Victoria Cartagena and Andrew Stewart-Jones, who you hear at the start of every episode, gracious enough to give us that. Obviously all the cast that we met at New York Comic Con last year with Donald Logue and Ben McKenzie, Aaron Richards, Danny Cannon, the creator of the show, and of course Philip Hernandez, who sent us in that wonderful voicemail. He played the medical examiner on that great episode of Gotham, or the first victim of Ed Nigma. Really good of him to send that in as well. Fantastic to have all of those people that were good enough to give their time to us as a little podcast from Ireland.
Yeah, so thank you so much for listening. It's been a blast, and we will see you in 4 weeks, but also more importantly, we will see you for season 2 of Gotham.
Absolutely. Thanks very much. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Gotham TV Podcast. Do not cross Alan and Montoya.